In the span of just a little over a year, the entire world has been subjected to a societal transformation. Almost overnight, we were told to stay home to save lives as the world grinds to a halt. We were instructed to ask permission to leave our homes, and even then, you were only permitted 5 kilometers. You were told not to hug your loved ones and to isolate your children within the home. Politicians created a hostile environment, encouraging neighbors to become informants. The police were given extraordinary powers to violate enshrined constitutional freedoms and liberties. You were told where to shop and what you could or couldn't buy. Gigantic monopolies profited as millions all over the world slipped into poverty. Small businesses suffered and were met with threats if they bucked the system. We saw the government flex its muscles as it shut down houses of worship, telling you where, when, and how to worship, all under the pretext of combating a virus. The United States of America, a nation founded upon the principles of civil and religious liberties, is here foretold in the book of Revelation as repudiating these very principles when this nation begins speaking as a dragon. But what does it mean when a nation speaks as a dragon? Allowing the Bible to interpret itself, we read in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, that the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Meaning that this nation that was once hailed as a safe haven for civil and religious liberties will begin implementing laws that will undermine the very principles of its constitution. Thus, the inevitable results of such legislation will be the persecution of God's commandment-keeping people.
If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. Let me repeat. If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. It's vaxxed or masked. The rule is very simple. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do.
President Biden with a stark warning for Americans who choose not to get the COVID-19 vaccine. He says, quote, they will end up paying the price.
If the unvaccinated get vaccinated, they will protect themselves and other unvaccinated people around them. If they do not, states with low vaccination rates may see those rates go up, may see this progress reversed. Ultimately, those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
If we don't get vaccinated and periodically boosted, we could prolong the pandemic and find ourselves continuing to fight this battle for years when we have the medical innovation to get back to living our normal lives in a matter of months. As law professor Shane Spector argued at Smerconish.com this week, without a better carrot or a bigger stick, many Americans won't get vaccinated and we will suffer more death and dislocation.
The vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And we have a very narrow window to tie reopening policy to vaccination status. Because otherwise, if everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have.
Because a sign of life returning to pre-pandemic normalcy. On Friday, many Americans went maskless in public for the first time in months, a day after the Centers for Disease Control relaxed its guidelines on face coverings for people who have been fully vaccinated.
I can breathe again.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's what everyone was waiting to hear.
The CDC saying fully vaccinated people no longer need to wear masks or practice social distancing indoors in most places. President Biden entering his Rose Garden briefing maskless. The White House confirming vaccinated staffers are no longer required to wear them.
It's a great milestone, a great day.
So there are lots of unanswered questions, right, about how businesses will know who's vaccinated and who's not.
Enforcing mask mandates was hard enough when everyone had to wear them. Now some business owners worry it'll get worse if they have to ask maskless customers for proof of vaccine.
Because how do you prove that you've been vaccinated unless you demand to see their vaccination card?
And some question if that's even legal.
Is it a violation of my privacy for a store to request my private medical information?
The short answer, according to experts, is probably not.
During a Zoom call today with the media, Oregon's state epidemiologist, Dr. Dean Seidlinger, said the Oregon Health Authority will likely require businesses check for proof of vaccination if they allow customers to drop their mask inside.
We would anticipate that an establishment, a business, will have to have a system in place for asking about vaccine status and verifying that. Right now, I would anticipate that would be seeing a card with the individual's name, the vaccines they've gotten, and the date and where they've gotten them.
It's okay for people fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to take off their masks indoors as long as businesses, churches, and other establishments check. That word came today from the Oregon Health Authority.
And Jamie, so this new guidance coming down from the governor's office impacts sporting events as well as religious gatherings. And what we're talking about is vaccine-only sections. This kicks in immediately and opens up capacity at these sporting events and religious gatherings by hundreds, if not thousands of people.
So, Cal, tonight the Heat will be opening up a vaccinated-only section in the arena for fans. Tell us more about the team's plans and how fans are reacting.
Yeah, so the idea is simple enough to try to increase attendance by opening up 2 sections in the lower bowl for fans that have been vaccinated. You go to gate number 6 here at American Airlines Arena. If you're one of the 450 people doing this, you need to show your CDC vaccination card showing that you had vaccines at least 2 weeks ago, as well as any kind of government ID. They will match the name up, sort of a test run happening here in Miami, of course.
When you got vaccinated, you got a card. You could also have the Empire Pass, which is on your smartphone. But on a vaccinated venue, you will be asked or can be asked to produce that card and proof of vaccination. So it can be the Excelsior Pass or the card, but you have to show that when you enter the venue. Or if you're asked, you have to present that.
This sign on Meta's front door says it all. A bar in downtown Louisville with a sign that reads, "No shirt, no shoes, no vax card, no dice." Management says fully vaccinated people are allowed in without a mask, but you're going to have to show proof.
That's right, Jim. And Bar Max is one of the only businesses in Denver requiring proof of vaccination. And you can see that means everyone inside can also go without a mask, according to new state guidelines. For many, it's been more than a year since they've been in a bar without restrictions.
It's the only bayou that you'll find in Utah.
Do you have your vax cards? Awesome.
And it's the only restaurant in the state that's requiring vaccination cards to get in.
Everybody's so excited to show me their cards. Nobody's got a problem with it.
I feel comfortable knowing that the people around me are vaccinated, and especially knowing that the support staff or the wait staff are also protected. It makes me feel comfortable not putting my mask on every time they come to drop off a drink or food.
Since last month, owner Marshall Smith has required proof of vaccination to come inside.
You just relax and enjoy the normalcy.
Now, customers can sit back and relax without a mask.
Just see a bunch of people getting along and having a good time and not stressing about COVID and not worrying about who they're sitting next to.
With the 100% vaccination rate for the bar, patrons like Lauren hope it stays that way.
There are many places that you can go and have a drink, and if you don't want to prove that you're vaccinated, that's okay. You can go somewhere else and wear your mask.
I will bet you this. I will bet you when you go to a restaurant and you're sitting next to a person who has no mask, people are going to ask the restaurant owner, did you check to make sure this person was vaccinated? And that's why it's on the operator's best interest to be able to say, yes, I checked the Empire State Pass. If they didn't have a pass, they had a card, but they were checked when they walked in the door.
Oregon businesses find themselves in an uncomfortable place. Some of their customers who are vaccinated will want to take their mask off inside, like the CDC said they could.
Kroger, Target, and Home Depot say they're keeping mask mandates in place. But Walmart and Trader Joe's won't require masks for vaccinated customers.
My concern is identifying the difference between those who are vaccinated and those who are not. So to go into a public space, to be less than 6 feet distance because I'm vaccinated, I'm just concerned that the next person, how honest are they going to be?
In order to meet the CDC guidance that someone who is vaccinated does not need to wear a mask or keep their distance, we need to know who is vaccinated. So we need someone to be able to disclose that their vaccination status and show that so that they can remove their mask in the setting and not keep their distance.
For the large venues, there will be, they will have to show, and that, just to be clear, that has been going on right now. So right now, there are venues that have been operating in Madison Square Garden and others where there is an option for testing and or proof of vaccination. So people have been, thousands and thousands of people have used the Excelsior Pass and or shown proof of vaccination so far. So this is not something that's new. What's new would be that it's 100% of all people in those places. So you have to 100% vaccinated.
I publicly have never supported the notion of a vaccine passport. Very few people have, because it really raises so many other policy questions around enforcement and equity questions around people who just haven't had a chance to get vaccinated. So I've never supported them, and yet here we are with a mask with a mask scenario where it's either on our system or something that looks like a vaccine passport.
Well, as more people start to remove their masks, restaurants are using special wristbands to show customers employees have their vaccination.
Good morning. It's called Immuniband, a first-of-its-kind wearable piece of vaccine identification. It's nothing extravagant, but it's valuable for sure. It's a wristband that has a QR code on the back that links to your vaccination card. So there's an ability to access the initial documentation. With the CDC saying it's okay for fully vaccinated people to gather, showing off that wristband is your way of saying, hey, I'm safe to be around.
A drop in demand for the COVID-19 vaccine has some experts warning that we may never reach herd immunity.
This FEMA-run site in Newark can vaccinate thousands of people per day, but outside, few takers come and go. It's not just in Newark. Nationwide, demand for the vaccine has dwindled.
Look, you don't want to force people to do something that they don't want to do, and we shouldn't be forcing them. On the other hand, it does look, if you look at the polling data and the uptake of the vaccines, that we're going to get to 50 or 60% of the people vaccinated. That looks like the eager group, the group that really wants it. But then we're going to have some low uptake, and we need to get to somewhere between 70 and 85% to really have herd immunity and get back to full pre-pandemic normalcy.
The state, Governor Whitmer is tying the state's reopening plans to the number of people vaccinated here in Michigan. And she just unveiled a 4-step plan that will automatically trigger the loosening of COVID restrictions once a certain percentage of the state population that is eligible has received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine.
There are clearly places where you're congregating people that we should have mandates. Students in universities, my university, for example, faculty and staff, healthcare facilities. Every healthcare worker ought to be vaccinated. I shouldn't have to worry, has my doctor been vaccinated? Has that nurse been vaccinated? What about, the respiratory therapist or the person drawing my blood? Those are groups. And I think employers ought to take this very seriously and consider mandating and requiring their workers to get vaccinated, especially if they're going to come back to the office.
My government has always said, and I have always said, that when it comes to matters that are critical to the survival of the state, the government must not take any option off the table. We have to ensure that people do the right thing. And if we need legislation to ensure that people act responsibly, we will be prepared to bring the legislation, because the health and safety of our country must never be compromised.
Nearly 20,000 people are out of their homes on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent after the first volcanic eruption there in more than 40 years. The volcano sent a thick cloud of smoke 20,000 feet into the sky, spewing ash for miles. Cruise ships are evacuating people from the island, but only those vaccinated against COVID.
Local people boarded ferries at night to neighbouring islands. Dominica, Grenada and Antigua have agreed to accept evacuees from St. Vincent, but only those people who are already vaccinated against the coronavirus.
Chief Medical Officer would be identifying the persons who are already vaccinated so that we can get them on the ship. You see, those who are vaccinated, she can get them going there on the vessel. Those who are not yet vaccinated but who would be vaccinated, you wouldn't want to send them immediately after vaccination. You'd want to hold them if they choose to. This is a voluntary business.
Should we let a determined couple of people determine the future of all of us? I say no. If it is in the national interest, if it is that people are being too tardy, if it is that people are not conscious that by remaining unvaccinated for long, they are jeopardizing the health of other people in the workplace. They are jeopardizing the recovery of the country.
As these things progress, they are an ominous foreshadowing of things to come. Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 says that all these are the beginning of sorrows. In other words, as we near the end of Earth's history, these events will continue to progress in frequency and intensity until the second coming of Christ. Even now, men of influence have forewarned us of events that are to come that will, as they say, make the current crisis seem in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shaken our economies and societies to the core and shown us how vulnerable we are to biological threats. In the digital world, similar risks are being overlooked right now. A cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and further than any biological virus. You see, the only way to stop the exponential propagation of a COVID-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. All of this in a matter of days. COVID-19 was known as an anticipated risk. So is the digital equivalent. Let's be better prepared for that one. The time is now.
The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
Well, yesterday, the FBI put out a joint alert with the Homeland Security Department's cybersecurity agency, CISA, alerting hospitals across the country to get ready for this kind of an attack, to prepare themselves and to make changes now to try to fend it off. Here's from that alert, quote, CISA, FBI, and HHS have credible information of an increased and imminent cybercrime threat to U.S. hospitals and healthcare providers.
It happened last week. Hackers infiltrated this Toronto hospital's computer systems with an ominous warning: your business is at serious risk. A malicious software called Ryuk blocked access to all information, including healthcare records and patients' charts. Michael Garron Hospital went into what's called a code gray.
Good afternoon, Max. This ransomware cyber attack is affecting one of the largest school systems here in the state of Maryland, and it has forced the school district to cancel classes for today, as you mentioned, and this is affecting thousands of students here. And this is so serious that the teachers union is urging people to turn off their computers and stay off of those computers. It gives you an idea that they still do not know the scope of this.
We had detected and realized quite
quite quickly that this was in fact a live attack against the WHO. We had also realized that the same actors responsible for the attack against the WHO had also targeted certain components of the United Nations that same day.
This morning, the Secret Service and FBI are investigating a dangerous cyber attack. A hacker attempted to poison Florida City's water supply. It happened last Friday in Oldsmar, near Tampa, just miles from the Super Bowl stadium.
The incident has revealed a vulnerability in critical infrastructures nationwide. Cybersecurity experts aren't just worried about the water, but also nuclear plants, electrical power grids, sewer systems, and more.
We're following breaking developments from the White House. The National Security Council confirms to NBC News that they are investigating a hack affecting the Treasury Department and a unit of the Commerce Department.
A Commerce Department spokesman telling me we can confirm there has been a breach in one of our bureaus. We have asked CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Critical Infrastructure Protection Agency of the federal government, and the FBI to investigate, and we cannot comment further at this time.
Out of that massive cyber attack, forcing the shutdown of a critical pipeline that delivers nearly half of all the fuel used on the East Coast.
This morning, the clock is ticking to restore one of the nation's largest fuel pipelines. The Colonial Pipeline Company says after hackers hit its system on Friday demanding a ransom, it was forced to shut down its 5,500-mile pipeline, which supplies nearly half of all gas, diesel, and other fuel to the East Coast.
To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic. 2020, the year that has really changed the world. It is thanks to technology that we are able to join the cyber polygon entirely remotely.
This training is another step in creating a trusted digital environment and fostering open dialogue to discuss even the most challenging cybersecurity issues.
As we battle a pandemic, food, and even potential water shortages, as the economy tumbles, the threat of cyber attacks, as tempers flare, food and basic necessities are scarce. As governmental leaders set in place what they regard as inevitable, the people of God must view these events as a declaration that the coming of Christ is near at hand. What we are witnessing is the fulfillment of Bible prophecy and the very groundwork that will lay the foundation for the persecution of God's commandment-keeping people. In the coming Mark of the Beast crisis, those that are loyal to God will see every earthly support cut off. Because they refuse to break His law, they will be forbidden to buy or sell. In contrast, those who have step by step yielded to worldly demands and conformed to worldly customs will not find it a hard matter to yield to the powers that be.